when someone is offering to give you mentorship, take it. If someone you meet at a course or at a networking event or whatever it is that you decide to go to, a wine tasting, whatever that event might be, make a connection, exchange numbers, try to somehow connect with them. If you have an opportunity to go to something else that you're invited to, you never know where that's going to lead you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the PTA Plus podcast. I am Katie Sutton, your host. Today's guest is Miss Sanaz Holcomb. She is a physical therapist assistant from Ohio, and we dive deep into some conversation about development, leadership, opportunities for PTAs. We talk a lot about the APTA PTA apps, which is the Advanced Proficiency Pathways for the Physical Therapist Assistant. We also talk about the Life Leadership Series and the LAMP Leadership Series. So these are some really good conversations that we have in regards to some of these programs that PTAs can take to really increase their value. And when we talk about that plus, that part of being a PTA that we all have, Sanaz has so many different things that we can use to fill in that blank. She's an advocate for the profession. She talks to students, PT and PTA students all the time, and just really truly advocates for PTAs and for physical therapists, and most importantly, her patients. I'm so excited for you to hear our conversation. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Thank you. Hello, welcome to the show.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm awesome. So you and I, we've been talking some time, Sanaz, about some things that I'm interested in hearing about as far as some of the leadership development that you've done and some of the PTA Advanced Proficiency Pathways. I'm going to have a hard time saying that today. So I'm really interested in hearing about that kind of selfishly, but I think that it's a lot of information that the audience is going to get a lot out of as well. So we are going to talk a lot about that today. But before we do that and we get started, I want to hear a little bit more about your background. So if you can tell everybody some of the things that you're doing right now, what you're doing for work clinically and outside of the clinic too, if you want.
Okay. Thank you for having me here today, Katie. So I graduated from Cuyahoga Community College, and I was really, really fortunate in starting to work with a group of, it was a private practice group that was owned by 3 physical therapists. And I was really lucky to work under them because they were very supportive. They were amazing mentors. And one of the PTs that I work with the most was an amazing mentor to me. And because of his initiative to become more advanced himself, that gave me the drive and basically the support to want to improve myself. And when I was in school, I really was not aware much about the APTA at the time. And he was very involved in that. So that kind of motivated me to become more involved. And he basically took me to my first meeting, and just following him and kind of trying to, in some ways impress him, but while improving myself, I kind of got more involved in various things. And in 2005, being an APTA member, I received some information regarding the Advanced Proficiency certification, it was called at the time. And, because of, once again, the environment that I was in and being, supported by my colleagues, I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. So at the time, once again, I was in a private practice outpatient clinic, and I became interested in the advanced proficiency. So I signed up for it. And at the time, it was a little bit different than what it is now. So I, utilized my resources as far as like continuing ed courses, which you needed. And I can get more into that once we get more nitty gritty about it. But that's kind of how I started. And I think that along with that and kind of going to some of the local meetings, it kind of encouraged me to get more involved. And I want to say probably around 2005, 2006 is when I took my first role in the district as a secretary. And since then, I've had several roles within the district. And the most current position that I have is the PTA school advisory position within our district. And I'm also the nominating committee for the Northeast District. And throughout the time that I served the various positions within the district, once again, I was mentored really well and had some fantastic people that tried to motivate me. And I have to thank the nominating committee for Ohio to approach me. And I became the PTA caucus rep alternate first. And then after that, I continued and became the PTA caucus rep and served in that position for 2 terms. And then following that, I applied for a national position at the time through the PTA caucus, which was now called steering group. So I served as the nominating committee, and that role has changed. So currently, although I would be in that position now, I'm one of the 8 steering group members for the national, under the national position. So those are kind of the roles that I have. I practice home care for St. Vincent Charity Home Care here in Cleveland and the surrounding suburbs. I am on the advisory board for a PTA program. I also do some lectures to PTA programs around Ohio and a couple outside of Ohio, I should say, thanks to COVID, doing it on Zoom, on the importance of, becoming a member, staying a member, also PTA relationship. And in the past year, I've also done a couple of lectures specifically regarding advanced proficiency pathway, just because not as many people are familiar to it. And I think it's important not only for PTAs to know about it, but also for PTs, because they would have to be our mentors. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what I've done and what I'm doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's important about what you just said was you had all these amazing people who were there kind of mentoring you and pushing you along, but you had to show up. Like there has to be a part of us who's willing to show up and do our part. Opportunity doesn't just come knocking on the door. You have to go out and seek it somewhat. So I think that from what you said, that's what I heard was you showed up.
Correct. I feel like within our career, we are presented with numerous opportunities, whether it's working with someone who is amazing, having a patient who is challenging, and, it could be different positions that we are exposed to within our job or within the association. And, it's not easy, I mean, it takes extra effort. But I feel like we kind of get out of it what we put into it. And one of the things that I remember hearing my mentor say often was, what can you give back to your profession that has given you so many opportunities? And so, once again, I feel like, I think we're really all presented with opportunities. And sometimes it's difficult, sometimes it's scary. But I feel that throughout my career and the opportunities that I've had, when I have taken the initiative, I have had nothing but amazingly supportive people to help and guide me and kind of help me get to where I am. And I will tell you, I'm not sure any of the positions that I had in a leadership position were ever things that I thought, oh, I'm going to apply for this. It was always someone who recognized, maybe me growing in an area or having, perhaps some qualities that I was not even aware of. And they, help me get into that position and basically make me believe in myself. And, and then from there, once I got into those positions, then I was able to kind of motivate myself and see what other positions I was interested in and maybe work towards those. So, mentoring is extremely important. And that is something that I have really taken um, into. I feel like it's a passion of mine is to mentor other PTAs, because it's not easy, and it's the opportunity is not always there. Just because you work in a physical therapy clinic does not mean that you're working with individuals that are necessarily involved or even know how to get you more involved. So when you
Mhm.
find someone who is knowledgeable, who is willing to help, take that opportunity
Yeah.
and run with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that model of mentorship is maybe initiated with students with that clinical instructor student relationship. But sometimes I think that that's where it ends, and I would love to see if it would continue to push forward past that first initial mentorship. And of course, CIs aren't paid for what they do, it's all volunteerism. But I mean, that's the same thing whenever you're talking about leadership and opportunities within the profession is I mean, it does take time. And you and I, we were just talking because we're friends outside of this podcast as well, that we're going to be on at least 3 calls this week between
Right.
different things that we're both involved in. So, it does take time, and you have to be willing to put that forward. But the things that I get out of it are so valuable, that I continue to want to give, and it to me it makes a difference, and I enjoy doing it. So,
Well, and I think one of the key words that you said is that, we are friends outside of, what we do. And I wish that more people would give themselves the opportunity to get involved a little bit, because I have found that I have built some amazing relationships
mhm,
with people, and I don't necessarily call them colleagues anymore, they're friends. And
mhm,
some of the things that we do, I mean, I consider fun. So,
mhm, yeah.
and they always say if you like what you do, you don't consider it work. And
Mhm,
so, I'm very fortunate that I can say that. So I don't necessarily think that what we're doing like right now or the meeting tomorrow night is necessarily work. I get a chance to see my
mhm.
friends and discuss things and learn from them and contribute. So,
Absolutely. Building that network is so important. And I've told this story once before, but I didn't really know and realize how broad and wide the profession was until I showed up at one combined section meeting. And I remember just standing there looking around thinking, gosh, I'm so clueless. I have no idea what's happening. Who are the people in the red coats? Maybe that can be its own episode someday. I don't
it
know.
should. It should.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, "What is happening here?" And I remember, just thinking that I had missed out on so much. And I went back home and I got on OPTA's, Ohio Physical Therapy Association's website, and I found your name. I'm like, "Okay, who's the person who's the PTA in charge here?" And so I think you and I actually met maybe a year or 2 after that at one of the Ohio, spring or fall conferences or something like that, but, I don't remember exactly how that was. It might have been at the 50th.
It was the 50th because I
Yeah.
really wanted every school to be there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so and then I guess the rest is, history, right?
History. Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So, the name of this podcast, PTA Plus, came about because I recognize and want to highlight all of the things that PTAs are beside just a PTA. And we hear that term a lot, that we're just a PTA, or, sometimes we get asked, when are you going to finish your degree? And you can see by both of our titles we've continued on, but I always wanted to be a PTA because that's the career choice I made. I didn't have the desire to go on necessarily to PT school. There were other things that I desired to do as well. But there's all these things that kind of go along with it. So I'm hearing you say you're a PTA plus, you're an advocate, you're an educator. What else would you use to fill in those blanks?
Um, I definitely would say a mentor, um, because that is something that I spend a lot of time, speaking with programs, and um, I I like to think of myself as an educator, although it's not in a school setting. I do give some lectures, but not in the same format as, you being a professor. Um, I do think that not only am I an advocate for the profession, but I'm also an advocate for our patients.
Mhm.
I think that is extremely important. And, when you talk about being a kind of educator, I think that's also the same thing to our patients, because we have so much to teach the public about what we do and what is available. And
Absolutely.
even though they may not be my specialty, but just to, let them know what is available. And, all the other things that come, with it: family, wife, friend. But as far as the profession go, I think it's important to advocate. And, as you become more involved, I do like to consider myself a leader, just because of some of the leadership positions that I've had. And, at the same time, I also want to call myself a student in a way, because I am not done learning.
Mhm.
I continuously try to improve myself. I, you know, Definitely beyond just getting your continuing education things in. Once I have kind of thought, okay, we've done this, let's see what else is available. And one of the things that I think not many people are aware of, including myself, just till a couple years ago, was all the leadership opportunities, like learning
Mhm.
classes, improving your leadership skills. And I feel that, those types of um, classes and certifications are something that not only can you utilize to maybe get into a leadership position, but just to better understand yourself,
Mhm.
other people, and ultimately, if we are treating patients, the better we know what and who we are treating. The diagnosis is the what, but the patient and how they learn and how they react and how we, respond, that is a very, very important part, along with working with others. And, you know, I feel like, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about the clinic or your home, they kind of integrate together. So
Mhm.
it makes you a better, well rounded person. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think something that you said that was important to me was about when you're advocating for your patient, building that network is only going to make you a better advocate for your patient because now you have connections all over the US. You have an in with people who are doing specialized things that now you can connect that and you can access resources a little bit better. And I find that incredibly valuable to patient treatment.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I feel like, when I compare us practicing now versus, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, the resources that are available, the
Mhm.
networking,
Mhm.
it's unbelievable. I mean, through the leadership positions that I've had, I basically can name off a couple of PTAs in almost every state that I
Mhm.
can contact today. And if I'm looking for something, information, job, whatever, if I may not know it, they may not know it, they know someone. And, it can, it really, it gives you so many options. And I feel like I have been very lucky to have taken the opportunities that I've had to build that network. And that is something that I would love for our current students and new grads to understand, that if you become more involved, I mean, it is unbelievable what you have available to you as far as information, jobs, opportunities in general. And that's, I think, very, very important, and not something that everybody knows how to go about to get. And,
Mhm.
this is something that I wish more people would take advantage of.
Absolutely. Yeah, hands down. So now on the selfish part of mine, the whole reason why I'm like, hey, we got to talk about this. The PTA Advanced Proficiency Pathways, correct? Am I saying it right?
Correct. Correct.
Awesome. Or PTA apps is easier that way, right?
Yes,
Yes. So there's quite a few of them,
there
but
is.
you have not one, not two, not three. You have four. You have four PTA apps.
I do.
Yeah, it's that lifelong learning. You're just never going to stop, are you?
Yeah. I have the next
Yeah.
one possibly picked out. No,
Oh, wonderful.
so it's interesting. So when the advanced proficiency certification first came out in 2005, I forget how many there were. Let's say it was like a handful. Um, it was a very PTA friendly, PTA advocate, physical therapist who was at the time basically our liaison for the APTA, Janet Crozier. And that was the first time I had any interaction with her. And, she presented this and, was basically 60 CEUs. That's how many you needed to complete the advanced proficiency.
Wow.
And 80% of those 60 CEUs had to be in the area that you were specializing in. And you had to have your PT as your mentor. And at the end of your 60 CEUs, you had to have them basically do kind of like a checkoff thing for you. And you submitted your, basically your whole project. And if it was approved, you would get the certification. And you had 5 years to do it. So in Ohio, having a PTA have to have 12 CEUs every 2 years. Basically, it was kind of like being a PT and having to have 12 CEUs every year. And I forget which one was my first one. I feel bad saying that. I think it was musculoskeletal. I'm not positive, but anyways, so I got it and I learned a lot. Right? It really made me focus in a specific area. And at the time, I was working in outpatient private practice, and then I went on to get my second one, which I believe is in geriatrics. I feel bad not knowing it, like in progression, but, fantastic one to get, right? Because obviously in outpatient, you get plenty of that. And very shortly around that time, I started doing home care as well. So I was doing outpatient and home care at the same time. And I did outpatient physical therapy for about, I want to say 5 years, 6 years full time, and then started adding home care. And then after about 8.5 years, 9, I went strictly into home care. And I've been doing home care ever since. So approximately, I'm going to say like 15, 14 years, something like that. And when I went into home care, obviously you see everything. And, could you renew your certification? Yes. But I thought, you know what? There's this area that I don't know much about, and I want to learn more about it. So I started doing the cardiovascular. And I feel like, that is something that no matter what field you're in, it definitely is a factor.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was one of the reasons why I started going into the, different advanced proficiencies because of that. And the last one I got was oncology. And by that time, the advanced proficiency certification had become advanced proficiency pathway. And the biggest difference between the two is, well, there's a few things. So first, now there's a couple of classes that you have to take online through the APTA that, are very specific for just the general program. Then those 60 CEUs, now 100% of them have to be in the area that you are getting your specialization in, not 80% anymore. The other difference is now your PT has to be doing more mentorship with you throughout your basically completion of the certification. So not only are they, doing more kind of like check off of your skill sets with that specific specialization with patients. So, and there were definitely things I like about both. One of the things that I like about the advanced proficiency pathway is that it is a little bit more focused. The one thing that I feel is a little bit more specific about advanced proficiency pathway is that now there's a test component to basically every course that you take. So, one of the things that I was able to do before was to take classes at combined sections meeting and they would count. But now it has to be pre conference because there's a test component with it.
Mm, okay.
And the nice thing is that all the classes that are offered under the Learning Center, under the APTA, all of them are acceptable for the advanced proficiency pathway.
Nice.
And they all have a test component. So I think, when you compare a physical therapist certification, right?
Mhm.
There's a test component
Yeah.
to
You
that
mean like board
yeah,
certification?
correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
So when they want to get a specialization, they have to take an
Mhm.
exam.
Mhm.
So I feel like this is kind of our version of having that
Mhm.
test component. So
Yeah.
I totally understand it and respect it and why it has been changed. So I think that it's a great way for us to advance our practice. And um, I was not aware exactly of how many people were um, signed up to do it. Obviously, somebody might sign up and finish it in 3 years versus someone might do it in 5 years. But when you look at
Mhm.
how many
Mhm.
people are graduating, or I should say, receiving their advanced proficiency, there's not that many. There is not that many. And I think this is where a lot of PTAs have the opportunity to advance their learning. I will tell you, it's not a guarantee to get a raise.
Mhm.
A lot of times I feel like what we do to even continuing education, CEUs, we don't do that to get a raise. We do it to maintain
Mhm.
our, skill set. And
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
that, it is very important for us to do more. And one of the things that I like to use this as an example when I talk to students. Um, you know, if one of us or a loved one needs medical care, we will do research on who's the best physician, who is, doing research on this, who is at the top of their,
Mhm.
field.
Mhm.
So when you think about us as therapists, 12 is the minimum CEUs a PTA needs in Ohio. Do you really want to be the bare minimum? That's kind of how I look at it. And, compared to, especially before COVID, even there was a lot of courses being offered online. And then once COVID hit, everything was online.
Mhm.
So I feel like if you're trying to advance your knowledge, if you're trying to advance your career, be a better clinician, there are a lot of opportunities now to do that, different formats of
Mhm.
learning and courses and options, things like that.
Yeah.
Even companies are now offering a lot of continuing education through the company. And is it a way to save money? Yes, but it's still an opportunity that you didn't have before. You
Mhm.
have to go research it, you have to plan it, and now it's planned for you.
Mhm.
But advanced proficiency is more structured. It is a little bit more expensive, but it is something that you have that not everybody has. So I believe it was in 2020 that I got my oncology, the last one. And first of all, that year, if I'm correct, only two people in the country got an advanced proficiency in oncology.
Wow.
And yeah, so there was a list like they have every um, group that is graduating in what section. But like in Ohio, I believe it was that same year. Um, I was doing a lecture, so I wanted to ask, how many people in Ohio were getting it.
Hmm.
So there's a gentleman at APTA, Derek, I forget his last name. He kind of runs all the specialization
Hmm.
activities there. I reached out to him and I said, "Can you tell me how many PTAs in Ohio are currently working on advanced proficiency?" And he told me two. And
Wow.
because I do a lot of lectures to PTA programs about benefits of belonging to the APTA, I kind of have an idea. I believe right now there's about somewhere around 8,000 PTAs that are practicing in Ohio. So it just kind of gives you an idea. And I have a feeling that a lot of them don't even know this exists.
Hmm.
And that's one
Yeah.
of the reasons why I think this podcast is important, is to teach other PTAs, number one, that there is such a thing and
Hmm.
how you go about it. Obviously, you have to be an APTA member in good standing. And, you, I think, pay like $135 for the application fee. And you basically start taking your classes
Hmm.
and working with your PT. The other thing I think that is important, I'm hoping some PTs are definitely listening to this podcast because I want them to know about it, because
Hmm.
you might be asked to be a mentor.
Absolutely.
And, if you are a PT or a PTA and you are in a management position, in a supervisory position, this is something that you can discuss with your staff, with your PTA, with your PT, to say, hey, either this would be something good to achieve. This could be a goal for you in 5 years. I
Hmm.
mean, we always have these goals that we want to
Yeah.
set for ourselves or for our employees. And I
Hmm.
think this is a fantastic way to, come up with something like a future goal.
Yeah. Setting that professional development goal ongoing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and I feel like when we think about what we do every day, we're there to treat patients and make their life better.
Hmm.
So anything that we learn that can help that, everybody wins. So, it's a fantastic opportunity. We just we basically specialize in an area that is important. And the four that I have, I feel like at some point all of us have some kind of musculoskeletal problem. We are all aging. you
Hmm.
know Cardiovascular, I mean, that's something that it changes in time. I was very surprised to learn in oncology some of the people that have gone through cancer. What are the long-term effects and
Hmm.
how that is? Because we think about someone who had cancer 10 years ago, but they
Hmm.
might still have effects. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there's so many different things that you when you think about the different areas of advanced proficiency, that really ties into different, practice settings.
Yeah.
So and that's one of the things that, I also would like to encourage. If someone who has an advanced proficiency, think about going for a different one.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, not that more things have not come out, not that, you couldn't learn what's new, obviously, but challenge yourself to a different area.
Hmm.
So I think that's it's rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hear a lot of PT say that they want to practice at the top of their license. And I see this as way practicing above.
It's kind of interesting. Over the years, um, obviously, the physical therapy degree went from a bachelor's to a master's to a doctorate level.
Mhm.
And when you think about the physical therapist assistant, although there are some colleges now that offer a bachelor's degree, when you talk about a physical therapy assisting, you're talking about the same licensure. So even though you
Mhm.
might have your bachelor's, you're still taking the same state licensure exam and you are still practicing as a PTA. Now,
Mhm.
there was a point where the APTA did do some research on whether to turn the PTA programs into a bachelorate level degree. And, as much as I like to, think of us as becoming more knowledgeable and really being the best person to practice, with a physical therapist versus, let's say, I don't know, an exercise physiologist or, a kinesiologist or something. We really, I feel like we need to be at the top of our game. And,
Hmm.
here
Yeah.
their degree is advancing, but ours did not. And I don't necessarily think that if our degree turned into a bachelor's degree, that would necessarily make us better clinicians. I feel like that bachelor's degree is definitely important if you're especially trying to get into management. There are
Hmm.
some PTAs who want to go on and become a DPT, but when it comes to treatment, you're talking about very specific skill sets and improving that. So I'm glad that this opportunity exists so
Hmm.
that we can improve ourselves. And not to say that there isn't other ways for, physical therapist assistants to advance themselves. There's like lymphedema
Oh,
specializations
yeah.
and
Hmm.
through other organizations, but through the
Hmm.
APTA, this is basically the one. And I'm glad that
Hmm.
they continue offering more sections to become a part of it. So that's very important.
Yes, agreed. And moving to a bachelor's degree sounds way easier than what it really is. I mean, I see the benefits and the values to both, but I mean, I think we have a good thing going with what we have right now. I think that PTA programs do an excellent job of getting in what they need to do. As a matter of fact, I think we do um, more than what people imagine that we can do in a short time frame for an associate's degree. But yeah, there are lots of ways that we can continue to grow. You're like the Energizer Bunny you just so there are a couple other things that you did, one of which was the Life series through Ohio, and you've done both lamp leadership. Is that correct?
All three now. So yeah,
All three. Go ahead and tell us about that.
so it's kind of interesting because I mean, listen, I still to this day, being involved in the Northeast District, I try to pretty much attend every single continuing education course that our district puts on. And it's kind of interesting because over the years we've tried to um, basically kind of ask our members, what would you like to have a course in? So, we try to do like something different all the time, women's health, peds, whatever. And, I find that sometimes, like, if there's therapists that, are never going to work in peds, they'll be like, well, I'm not going to that course. But it's funny because
Mhm.
I've gone to support and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know that. And that kind of, and you pick things out. And, it's just,
Yeah.
even though it's not in your scope of practice, right? So here I am, going to these different CEUs. And I will be very honest, the reason why I got interested in doing the Life series is because I was, applying for a national position and I lost. And I was trying to think of how I could improve myself because I really wanted that position. So I wanted to be able to run for it again and say, in the last year, I have done this to improve myself.
Mhm. Yeah.
And during that year, I had joined a leadership book club, something super, super casual through the PTA caucus at the time. And then Ohio had put on this leadership training called Life Series, and the first cohort had gone through it. And so, as soon as I lost, I was once again trying to think of what to do. So I called up the OPTA office and I said, listen, this is my goal. This is why I want to take it, is because I want to say that I'm more qualified to run for this position. I'm more qualified to have this position. And so I applied for it. And, it was very, very interesting. I feel like it is one of those series of, so it's a combination of books you read and the individual who gives the class is basically an expert in this. She has written books, and it was very interesting to learn some things about myself and also behaviors and how I learn, how I react, and and how others and how we perceive that, and it was a fantastic course, and I completed it, and I ran for that position again, and this time I was successful. Um, Around the same time, I had heard about this leadership training through the APTA. I didn't know a whole lot about it, but because of completing that, I kind of was interested in doing the LAMP series. It's leadership and innovation is the section. There's actually a whole section of it, and just like aquatics, just like geriatrics, and I did not know this, So anyways, I joined in, and basically it was in a way a more I don't want to say like that life series on steroids, but kind of, and interestingly enough, so LAMP is it's 101, 201, 301. It is
Okay.
offered through the APTA. And it is, if you go to combined sections, it is a pre-conference course that you can take 2 days, 2 full days. It's also offered in other avenues through the APTA, like they go to different states and put these courses on as well. One of the things that I was very surprised to see, in a way, was, let's say there was maybe, I'm going to guess, 60 people in the class, and there's like 2 PTAs.
Hmm.
And you're talking about, I mean, I'm not saying that's for the whole year, but once
Yeah.
again, not too many PTAs.
Hmm.
So, and it was interesting because a lot of people who are in this course are usually managers. They are educators, directors, basically people in a leadership position. And it was very interesting to see kind of like why they were taking this course, because they
Hmm.
want to learn how to be better managers. They want to be better leaders. And, when I think about it, you're still thinking about becoming better in
Hmm.
every way, whether it's you're treating a patient, whether you're being, I feel like the more you learn about yourself and how to handle various situations, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about at home, at work, with friends, with patients, it's all together. But once again, I think about my top priority, obviously, I'm a clinician
Hmm.
and I
Yeah.
want to treat my patients, and not every patient will share things with you the same way, learn from you, respond to you. So, to me, that is one of the, most important things for myself. And then, of course, carrying that into your leadership, So it was a very, very eye opening uh, course. I think that the people who, if I'm talking, let's say, to just an audience here in Ohio,
Hmm.
I would encourage people who have taken Life Series to also take LAMP. Don't think that they're the same. I
That's good
think that
information. Yeah.
it is, yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely think that they, have different information that they give, The second one, same thing. It was kind of like a buildup, of you take what you learned in 101 and you
Hmm.
apply that to things in 201. And then 301 is more of an independent project that you do. So you kind of take what you learned from 1 and 2, and you basically kind of present it, you teach it, and that is, basically what 301 is. And um, so, it's one of those things where, and I don't really have a certification in anything that has a series to it, but I feel like if you've done 101, definitely do 201. And the
Mm.
nice thing about
Mhm.
301 is it's not a course per se, you do it on a self study. So if
Oh,
you have
okay.
the opportunity to do it, you do it at your own time. You work with an amazing, actually, PTA, Sean Bagby, who is in charge of 301. So it's a great opportunity to, once again, advance yourself
Mhm.
and once again, no matter whether it's an advanced proficiency, whether
Mhm.
you're completing life series or LAMP, I feel like all in all, it helps you become a better clinician, a better, individual in
Mhm.
whatever it is that you're trying to achieve.
Exactly. So it sounds like you don't necessarily have to have a trajectory towards some kind of management or leadership. This is just going to simply improve the way that you communicate with your
Correct.
family, your friends, your patients, your
Correct.
colleagues, your coworkers, everything. So,
Correct. And it's kind of interesting. I have to, say my mentor and first basically PT that I work with who really encouraged me to get involved is Dr. Anthony DiFilippo. And if you asked him, you know, to maybe describe me or something, he always likes to use the word strong-willed. and and it
spicy.
makes it makes me kind of laugh, but at the same time, you know, I'm sure like well, he's known me for many, many years. Well, we won't mention how many, but show my age. But I've grown. I'm glad I've grown. I think about some of the things I would maybe perhaps think or say, my train of thought, and that's what you hope, right?
Mhm.
You hope that you grow, and
Absolutely.
um, this is something that I feel like has really helped me, grow, and I, look forward to more ways of growing because
Mhm.
I feel like I have more room for growth, and I continue to want to improve myself. So, when I think about how I would treat a patient, my thought process, taking everything um, you know, into consideration.
Mhm.
When I got into leadership positions, working with a group, especially when you work with a group of people that don't necessarily think like you, or um,
Or
maybe
understand the role of a PTA. I mean,
right,
we
right.
we yeah, that's common.
Right. And like let's say you're working on a project and you don't have the same point of view.
Mhm.
And I still this is something that I, see myself getting hopefully better with is, trying to see other people's point of view, trying to have an open mind and learn. Not everybody, and you don't want to have the same train of thought.
Mhm. Yeah.
As I think you achieve more. And this takes time because,
Mhm.
you feel like if you all think the same way, you're gonna, come with a better plan. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not.
No. No.
One of the
Yeah.
projects that we did when I was at Leadership 201 this past year, I forget exactly what the game was, but basically it was a card game. There was a bunch of us, and we had to come up with a way to come up with a certain number or something. And everybody thought we should come about it a different way. And there was really only like two to three different ways of doing it. And we're just like, do it this way. No, do it this way. And just, the team building, and working together. And it's not easy. It's not easy, and I think when you're in a leadership position, people look up to you.
It's not.
So you think,
Yeah.
I think it's important. And the same thing with a patient. Once again, I like to keep going back because, I don't want anyone to look at this podcast and think, well, I'm not doing that, so I don't need to do it. This is
Mhm.
really for everyone. and
Mhm.
there's a lot of PTAs that at some point might either take a break from practicing because of, family, or something changes, or they might get into a different part of healthcare.
Mhm.
So I feel like this is something where, you gain knowledge for life, and
Yeah.
it's available to us, and we just need to know about it and how to go about signing up and completing it.
Mhm. Absolutely. I was just talking to a friend today about our diverse backgrounds and how that adds to a team uh, dynamic, and how boring it would be if we all thought alike and felt alike. And a lot of times things fail because we don't um, view others' skill sets as a strength when maybe that's what we need. And so, in order for us to succeed, we really have to recognize that, hey, you're really good at this, and hey, you're really good at that. And let's pull it all together. And that's what's going to drive that team forward. So, it's really important to kind of remember those things, that we're just simply the dynamics of the team, the diversity of the team is what makes the team drive forward
Absolutely. And I think
if we can
PTAs in
appreciate it.
general, right, have a very diverse background, with a lot of programs having a little bit of an older, student diversity, and just different backgrounds and age and everything. A lot of PTAs have had other careers. And, that's one of the things that I also feel should be taken into, account when you're talking about what we bring. And, that's important and underutilized.
Yeah, agreed. So, the big theme, these are things hearing from you as we talk through all of these different facets of how PTAs can become not only involved, but simply increase their knowledge. First, PTAs have to show up. We got to show up. We got to be willing to figure things out and learn more. We've got to grow that knowledge, find that value, and we have to start recognizing the future leaders. We have to start recognizing diverse skills, that these things that I'm hearing from you as we go through this, it's kind of
You cut out that last part. Was there a
yeah.
question?
This is what happens. No, but this, if any podcast that knows me and follows me on Facebook, you'll understand my frustrations. Also on Twitter, I've made it very clear that broadband access needs to improve in rural Ohio. So we do the best that we can to cut out any kind of like crazy moments in this podcast, but the reality is this is life. This is
Yes,
how it
it's
is.
not
So
perfect. It's
everyone,
not
this is
perfect.
me.
Yep. Yep.
No, no, this is me. We're just having a discussion. So I'm
Yep.
just happy I get to be a part of it. Okay, so Sanas, last thing, your plus point. Do you have some wise words of advice and some parting thoughts for our guest? I know right now it's May. We're recording this in May. I don't know when it's going to be released, but there's a lot of graduates coming out right now. What would you
Yeah.
leave us with?
Um, so I wanna I wanna, in a way, like, if you will, in a closing statement, I want to bring up this one memory first. So 2005, once again, right? So I sign up for the first advanced proficiency. A few years later, I'm getting it, and I go to the first APTA Advanced Proficiency Certification celebration. It was in Boston, and I want to say it was at the House of Delegates, which I had no idea what that was, right? So, and for those of you that don't know, it's a big meeting that, happens once yearly, and a lot of things are decided on by delegates that you
Policy.
choose. Yes,
Very, very
policies,
policy based. Yeah.
very policy based. So that's where the event was. And I can't remember how many of us there were. I want to say maybe 11 or 13 for some reason, around that number. And I had never met any of these PTAs. And there's a picture of this, and me and Katie were trying to come up with this picture, but it's on the APTA website.
We'll
And
find it. We'll dig it up somewhere.
we'll dig it up. And I can't believe that at the time I was like, yeah, I don't know who she is. I don't know who he is, but we're gonna stand here all smile, right? And the first podcast that Katie did was with Roy Junkins, and he was there. And Amy Smith is in there. And I'm naming off these names, but these are PTAs that have been involved in pretty much every way possible. And just now that I look back and I'm like, wow, that was really great. And now I can say I have actually served, in positions along with these people. And that's just a nostalgic moment for me, right? So, what I want to leave everyone with is that when someone is offering to give you mentorship, take it. If someone you meet at a course or at a networking event or whatever it is that you decide to go to, a wine tasting, whatever that event might be, make a connection, exchange numbers, try to somehow connect with them. If you have an opportunity to go to something else that you're invited to, you never know where that's going to lead you. I would have never thought that going to maybe my first district meeting would have made me become more involved, take a position. And I feel like any opportunity that you get to meet people, to network with other professionals, don't be shy. Go out there, put yourself out there. If you're a student and you go to an event, you go with your, fellow classmates, try to go away from them for a few minutes, introduce yourself, get to know other people. When you graduate, I feel like you're kind of like everybody else, right? So, your employers don't necessarily ask you, well, what was your GPA? They want to know that you have a current licensure in good standing. That is usually the most important thing they want to know. And that you graduated from an accredited school, which you couldn't take the licensure board if you didn't. So you come out and you're pretty much all level, right? Make yourself more marketable. Make yourself a better clinician. And, I can't say that, as a 10-year PTA, I felt more comfortable than as a 5-year, because I feel like the more you work, the more you're like, oh, I need to know more about that. Now I need to know more about that. There's always more to learn. And this is one of the opportunities you have. So if you can, talk to your employer, this is a great interview, point that you can make. What are your continuing education reimbursements? Do you support this? Do you, because they want the best, right? So
Yeah.
try to advance yourself so you're the best at what you do. And you stand out more than someone else because you have a specialization in it. And it's something that is way underutilized. Remember, only a couple in the state of Ohio get their advanced proficiency. You could be one of them. So, try to take advantage of what is available to you. Whether it's in a clinical education, learning opportunity, to a leadership, learning opportunity, these are all going to make you a better individual to do the job that you do. So take advantage of every opportunity that is available. If you don't know what's available to you, find out who can help you. And that's where I think our website is fantastic. No matter what state you're in, there are different districts. There are, leadership within those districts. And I will tell you, I wish we had more people who were interested in getting involved. And I feel like because we don't have as many individuals, when we have someone, we just want to give because we want that person to be successful.
Hmm.
So as long as you show up, you're going to have amazing support
Yes.
and mentorship, and all of us will help you through it because
Hmm.
we're doing what we're doing because we had it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't even know how to end this because that was like perfect. So like you said it all in that plus point. So thank you so much for sharing that. I agree with you 100%. I think that these programs that you talked about today are certainly valuable, but definitely underutilized. And I hope that this just brings some awareness to the fact that they're out there, they're available to PTAs. We would love to have more PTAs take these types of trainings and certifications just because it helps drive the profession forward. It makes us better clinicians. It makes us better instructors and really anything in life. Like you said, it translates to every area. You're a better wife, friend, sister, mother, you name it, just because of the things that you've learned throughout this profession and the development that you've done. So thank you for coming on and thank you
Thank you
for
for having
talking
me.
to a newbie podcaster. I mean, you could have absolutely said no, but you didn't because that's not in your blood to say no.
Someday, maybe, you know.
Well, thank you so much for joining us
Thank you.
tonight, and we'll talk to you here soon. Okay.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for listening.
The PTA Plus podcast is hosted and produced by Katie Sutton in collaboration with PT Podcast host and CEO Jimmy McKay. Thank you for listening to another episode of the PTA Plus podcast, where the conversation is for PTAs by PTAs. This show is for educational purposes only and not intended for clinical decision making. While care is taken to ensure accuracy, factual errors can be present. Become part of the PTA Plus podcast family by liking, sharing, and subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere you can listen to podcasts.